a lot of people will use an editor and they maybe don't use it to the fullest, or they get stuck on something when something better comes along. And I think we're going to address both of those today if you're using ColdFusion. Um, I remember some of the presentations when it came out, and it seems the focus was on ColdFusion, as it always should be, with all the new functions and things you can do with it. And I realized we hadn't had anything. I'm not sure ever really on the editors. And I've been using VS Code for a long time, but I've never installed ColdFusion Builder, and I'm interested to learn what I can gain by doing that. So if you want to congratulate Charlie Arehart, my gosh, he's been around. I think I've known him since I entered ColdFusion, if not by name, but certainly probably 3 or 4 years later when I went to the first, I don't know what it's called, CF Fun back then. I
Yeah,
can't remember the first name of it, but
that was one of the first ones. Absolutely.
I wasn't there the year that it was held at the college, but I was there the next year. So go right ahead, sir.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Glad to be back on the MMC Bug. And just to add a little bit to what Rick had said, I'm also going to contrast CFBuilder with other CFML-based extensions for VS Code, and then I'll contrast it a bit with the old editors for CF, like the old CFBuilder and Dreamweaver and HomeSite Plus and CF Studio, for those that have been around long enough. And trust me, there's people that are still holding on to those with their firm grip. They don't want to lose access to their favorite editors. So I totally understand it. So this talk, I'm just giving out information as always, and take from it what you can and benefit from it, as you will. And let's go ahead and get started. So there you see on the screen. Yep, good. So getting going with ColdFusion Builder, the introduction of the description that Rick had shared gave you clarification of what we're going to talk about. I'll do a little bit into in a bit. There's all my contact information. Very easy to reach on all the socials. It's always just Arehart. And you can get this slide deck for the presentation using that QR code. Feel free to take a screenshot right now if you like, or with your phone, whatever. Do whatever you need to do. There's the link to, just if you want to type it, arehart.org/presentations. And it's currently the first one on that page. And I'm repeating, this is a talk I gave at CF Summit in Vegas, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I guess it was 2 months ago this last week. So I gave this talk then. I've refined it a bit since then. I want to say before we get started that they only gave us 45 minutes for the slot, which means if you want to leave time for questions, that's 40 minutes and, intros. And so it really was compressed. They're going to have us, they didn't record them. They're going to have us repeat, those of us who presented at the summit, they're going to have us repeat them online for what they're going to call a CF Summit Online. They've done that some years, not every year. And so I'll be repeating this for the CF's audience, and I'll probably keep it to just under an hour. That's usually what they do, something like that. But with you guys, I know you're a little more flexible and you like to ask questions, and we have the freedom to go a little longer, so I'm prepared. I've tucked a couple extra things into this talk that I had taken out in the interest of time, and I've left a few things that, depending on your all's interest, we can go further if you want, or cut it off, around an hour, whatever y'all prefer. I'm always happy to work the way you guys would like to work. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to clarify for those who don't know anything, trust me. And again, I know there's only a few of us on the call, but some people are watching this in the recording later, and I don't know who knows what. So CFBuilder, ColdFusion Builder, is a free extension for VS Code, which is free. So some people don't know what VS Code is. Some people didn't know it was free. Some people hear CFBuilder and their brains think of the thing that had been around for 10 plus years. It's not that. It's different than that. It's got some similarities, but this doesn't cost any money. And I'll answer some of the common questions that people would come up with when they're thinking about it. I'll talk about installing it, and it's pretty straightforward. And I also want to mention that if you are a VS Codium user, which is the open source implementation of VS Code, not from Microsoft, but from the same code base, but without any of the Microsoft crap, yeah, you can use VS Code on that, or sorry, CFBuilder on that. Now, I know some of you are going to be saying, no, you can't. I've tried it. I'll cover that in a bit. So we'll show you how you can do it. And then I want to move into features and benefits of VS Code and CFBuilder. And this is the thing. CFBuilder is an extension on VS Code. If you're going to use CFBuilder, trust me, if you're moving to it from never having used VS Code, you've got things you need to learn about how VS Code works, and you need to understand what it brings to the table. And you have to understand that CFBuilder is an extension on VS Code. So some of the things you'll complain about, I don't like the way this works, it's not Adobe's choice. It's the VS Code choice, and it's highly configurable. So anyway, I could talk all day about just VS Code capabilities. I won't have time, obviously, but I'm going to touch on a few key things. Then we'll talk about CFBuilder or CFB. Sometimes people use CFB. So I'll talk about some of the basic features that it has. And these are things that pretty much anybody could use, probably would want to use. Then I'm going to talk about how it's configurable, because some people are going to, I don't like that it does this, or I find that it can't do that. Well, it's highly configurable. I'm saying VS Code is highly configurable, and CFBuilder is very configurable. Don't worry, you don't have to configure it, and you don't have to learn VS Code. So I'm just saying it will benefit you to understand that there's a lot to this. This is really about VS Code, and there's a good bit to CFBuilder that's very configurable. So again, when you see people complaining on the web that something doesn't work, it's either that they didn't know that it could be changed, or notice I say some features require configuration in CFBuilder and or in CF. And a lot of people don't know that. So they'll say, this doesn't work. And the people that answer their question go, yeah, that's crap. I moved off of it. I use XYZ instead. They missed the opportunity to leverage what was available because they didn't know how to deal with it. So we'll get you a little bit ahead of that curve in this talk. And then I do want to compare briefly those other CF extensions, CFML extensions. Some of you know about them, Kamasama K and Ilias and several. There's really several. Ortus has a couple. So we'll talk about those. And also we'll talk a bit about contrasting this with traditional CF editors. What do you lose in moving from them, and what do you gain? So anyway, moving on. Yep, there you go. And then I have some more, again, depending on the time we have, I've got more things I could share with you that are tips and tricks and things to know and be aware of and watch out for with regard to both CFBuilder and VS Code. And then, as always, I try to end with resources for finding more information, because we won't have time to cover everything. All right, cool. Anything before I go on? Anybody with any thought or question, comment, feedback? Okay, and you're muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself. All right, let me go ahead and proceed. So for those who don't know me, I'm a CF server troubleshooter. I'm an independent consultant, don't work for anybody. I assist organizations of all sizes and all experience levels, work remotely 99% of the time, safe, secure, and easy via shared desktop. And I can solve most problems in less than an hour. And I'll teach you as we go how to understand the problem and then solve it. And the thing I had is satisfaction guaranteed. If you don't find the time with me to be valuable, then you won't pay for it. It's that simple. So you can learn more about my rates and approach and the online calendar and more at carehart.org/consulting. I'm not selling anything in this session. I'm just giving out this knowledge to help others. And as I said earlier, this presentation that you're looking at now, the PDF of the slide stuff, you'll be able to go get it right now or later, whenever you want, at that URL or using that QR code. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on. The QR code is more valuable in a session where everybody's in the room and don't have their computers. You guys are all on a computer. Just go visit carehart.org. There's how to spell it. In the bottom right corner, it's always there, carehart.org, and then just go to the presentations. You can download it anytime. So who are the audiences of this talk? Well, like I said, there's a lot of different potential audiences, and there could be those who love CFBuilder and are using it and want to learn more. Yay, you guys. Then there's going to be people who've heard about CFBuilder being a VS Code extension, and like Rick said, aware of it, might want to learn more. Those who knew of ColdFusion Builder, the old Eclipse-based version, which is very different. We're not talking about that. And let me just warn you, sometimes when people kvetch and complain about CFBuilder, their brain is thinking of this thing that existed from like 2008 till 2018 or 23. I think, yeah, it went away finally in 23. So 15 years, that thing is no longer supported. We'll talk about that later. They may not be aware that there is a VS Code, Visual Studio Code extension. That's what we're talking about in this presentation. And there's people who've never heard of either one. Right? They didn't know there was anything that Adobe has ever offered, or maybe they'd heard of it but never paid attention. So again, we'll cover that audience. And then there's people who've never heard of VS Code. What the heck is VS Code? Visual Studio Code. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then there's people who use VS Code or CFBuilder, but listen, they just use it as a text editor. They don't care about anything else, or they haven't thought to worry about anything else. They just edit their files, open the file, edit, change it, page up, page down, file save, file open. Yeah, you can work that way. Boy, there's a whole lot of stuff you're missing out on. And if you add an extension for CFML, you get a lot of stuff. And if you add CFBuilder, you get some other stuff. So again, we'll talk about that. I want to say too that again, there's those who get frustrated with trying to find things that they're familiar with from some other editor, and they get frustrated trying to solve it. Well, I say you're an audience for this talk because I'll talk later about dealing with some of that stuff that you find you can't find. There might be a solution. And then I really want to address people who have tried CFBuilder or only hear from people who say they've tried it and complain that they hit problems and they couldn't get it working, or this didn't work, or that didn't work. I hear it all the time. I'm telling you, I do this stuff every day. We can pretty much fix every problem that comes up. I know when you go asking on, Slack or forums or Facebook CF group, you may get people saying, it sucks, stop using it. I'm here to talk about it doesn't suck. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. It's software. There's always opportunities for improvement. And some things are just about not knowing how to connect some dots. So that's what we're going to do in this talk. And lastly, those people who are using other extensions, and they may be people who feel any of these things above, and they have not felt any compelling reason to look at CFBuilder. Well, we're going to talk about why they might want to. That's all. So, I'm not trying to sell you on it. I'm not trying to persuade you to change. I just want to give out the information. You make your call. You're all adults. All right. So CFBuilder is this free extension. I want to make that point again. VS Code is free itself. It's open source. Yes, VS Code is open source, and it's from Microsoft, and it's formerly Visual Studio Code. Some people just call it Code. When you open it, you'll see in the menu, it just says Code. VS Code is most popular. I want to clarify, look, it's not Visual Studio, right? So if you've been around a long time, you might hear Visual Studio and think, ugh, I don't want that. That thing's crap. Well, this is not that. It's not that at all. It doesn't bear any resemblance to it. I have no idea why Microsoft decided to call it that. It's moved too late. We're moving on. It's been around for about 10 years. It's called Visual Studio Code, VS Code. That's why they tend to say VS Code. Just it is what it is. Key is that it's got a huge marketplace of free extensions from the community, from other vendors, like Adobe is a vendor who created an extension. Lots of companies, Redgate creates things, all kinds of companies create extensions. So again, it's got a marketplace that's very extensible. You can have it do things that support pretty much any language out there. And if you go to any conferences these days and see people doing demos and showing code, they're almost always using it. Not everybody, sure, some people use other things that they favor for whatever reason, but I would say it's probably got the largest, and some people estimate that it's used by the most developers across most languages. And I'm telling you, you name the language, VS Code's probably got an extension for it, including ColdFusion and CFML. And we're talking about the one today called CFBuilder, ColdFusion Builder, or CFB, and it's free and it's closed source. Sorry, they didn't open source it. It's from Adobe, so it's free, closed source. It was first released in 2022, and there have been a few updates to it since then. The way Visual Studio's extension marketplace works, you get notified when there's extensions needing updates, and I'm just saying that you'll see that if you look at the history, there's been a few of them over the, 3 years now that it's been out, 3.5 years. And I want to clarify again that the original CFBuilder, that was not free. It was commercial and closed source. And most importantly, it was based on Eclipse. And that really didn't appeal to a lot of people. That Eclipse was a Java-based application development environment. IDE came out almost 20 years ago, certainly 15 years ago. And Adobe made the choice in the mid 2000s to 2008, I think, is when they started creating the extension for it. And then they created CFBuilder based on it. So that is gone. And that, I think I say here, yeah, it was last updated with CF 2018, and it was retired finally last year. So if you're still using it, again, you can still use Dreamweaver, even though it hasn't supported CFML in almost 20 years, or at least 12 years. Anyway, long time. You can use it if you want, but it's gone and you really should be getting off of it. But I know some people that's their editor. They prefer to use it. They're familiar with it. I totally get it. But you who use CFBuilder, the old one, should find that there's a lot of similarity in the way CFBuilder works on VS Code, but it is on VS Code. And I'm telling you, there's a lot you need to learn about VS Code. That has nothing to do with CFBuilder. So that is going to be, for some people, a reason that they find it difficult. But look, I just want to say this. I don't know if I covered it, but anytime you move editors as a developer or a person that edits files a lot, whatever you want to call yourself, changing editors is like, getting a new hand. And you're going to be having trouble for a while getting used to how to work with it. But people do, even in those circumstances, eventually become very capable, even with that new, limb. And you can do that too. It isn't quite as hard as that. I'm just saying it can feel like it's really hard. So I'm trying to give you insight and information to help you. And CFBuilder for VS Code, as well as VS Code, is available for Windows and Mac and Linux. So everybody's covered. All right, so some common initial questions. What is the relationship then of VS Code to Visual Studio? It's just the name. That's it. There's really no other connection at all. So just forget about any experience you have with Visual Studio. It doesn't apply. Forget about it, move on. And again, if that's really gripes about it, don't worry. There's a different animal entirely. Why did Adobe choose to leverage VS Code? Well, like I said earlier, it was clear within 5 years ago, and maybe even as much as 10 years ago, that it was really taking off. The VS Code team, whether you want to call it Microsoft or the community, had just really created what a lot of people felt was a great, editor that everybody could buy into. And it was extensible and configurable, so you can make it be what you wanted. And we'll see that there's all kinds of resources out there to make it what you want. But I also want to say, don't let that scare you. I'm not trying to scare you by saying it's very configurable and extensible. You can learn the handful of things you need to know and be productive with it the day you install it. I'm going to show you later. I mean, for now, we're going to talk about some things, but I'll show it. Anyway, and then about those existing extensions, I'll cover that in this talk. Why would I want to consider it when there's Kamasana K or Ilias or all the others that are out there? We'll cover that. And again, what if you have problems? I'm going to cover that. So I understand these are all things that trip people up as they get started. As far as installing it, I just want to make this clear. There's two key resources, one for VS Code and all my URLs, and I just dropped the HTTP and HTTPS, and I just put the domain name and the path, and if there's a file name. So just look for that italicized. That's the URL. I mean, you don't even need to do that. I had already happened to open in the browser here. There you go. So if you just Google or Bing or use whatever you like to use, search for Visual Studio Code or VS Code, just VS Code, you're taken to the VS Code website. I was on that originally. Sorry. There you go. That's the page for it. And, there's how to, and it detects what platform you're on and offers a download for that. Or you can tell it, no, I'm looking at a browser on a Mac, but I want the Windows, or I'm looking on a Windows, I want the Mac, whatever. And there's screenshots and introductions and highlights of key things that it can do. And each of these has links to go into more detail. And there's just plenty. It's a very rich editor. So I just want to say, you should pursue this on your own. You should visit that site. Look, it's code.visualstudio.com, or I was pointing to the link for the documentation for it in particular in my slide there. So there's the link to setting it up and the overview of how to go about setting up. This was about installing it. So go check that out. And then ColdFusion Builder, CFB, Adobe's got these crazy long URLs, but that is the URL in the ColdFusion Builder docs, which is called ColdFusion Builder Extension of Visual Studio Code. And it's the page called Get Started ColdFusion Builder Extension Visual Studio Code. Go figure. Department of Redundancy Department. Anyway, go check that URL out to learn more about that. And I had that page up as well. In fact, let me just try to not switch monitors. Just a second. I've got some technical challenges here. Just a second. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And if you just Google ColdFusion Builder, even if you misspell it, Look what comes up first. There you go. Is this page all about it? And again, the link I gave was specifically to the docs page. And if you scroll down here, eventually these things will link you to the docs pages, but you can learn more about it through these ample resources. That's where we want to leave it. There's plenty of resources to learn how to get it, to learn how to install it. Now, I want to say that, that part you can just follow those available resources from Microsoft, from Adobe. But if you're in an organization or of an opinion that you prefer open source only and you don't want to use Microsoft software, then there's this thing called VS Codium or just Codium. And there's a couple variants of it, but we'll just leave it at that. There's VS Codium. I want to tell you, you can use ColdFusion Builder with it. I said it earlier. I'm going to show you how to do it in a bit. But as far as we're talking about installing, I'm just saying, yes, you can use CFBuilder with VS Codium. It's just a little different. I also want to point out that CFBuilder's design is based on Visual Studio Code, VS Code using Java. It requires Java be installed, and it requires, at a minimum, that a Java home environment variable be defined. And you might go, I don't know if I have that. Well, again, that's another discussion for another time. You can Google finding out about that. You can install Java in various ways to get that implemented automatically by the Java installer, or you can set it up your own ways. There's even ways to configure VS Code. I won't get into that detail in this talk, but I just want to tell you, CFBuilder leans on VS Code's Java support, and that VS Code Java support expects to leverage this or other things. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as it comes up. So both install easily, both can be working in seconds, and I say even now, and I just want to now flip over to a VM that I have running here, and I had done that just before the call. I had downloaded it, so let me just open up my editor. And so I don't think this stuff is in the way of you guys, is it? In case it was. There was the VS Code, because I'm on Windows, it got an exe and downloaded it. And I just clicked it and ran through it, and it asked a few questions, and it was done and installed, and now it's running. And here it sits open and ready for me to work with it. Now, it's Spartan, right, when you first get started. And it had a getting started that I closed, but it would guide you through a getting started. You can always get back to the getting started. There's get started. There's all kinds of references and help and documentation. So, you can learn more about this stuff on your own. There's menu across the top. There's buttons on the left. We'll talk about some of these things later. But that it's just an editor. I mean, and you can open a file. Let me just do it real quick. I'll say File, Open, File. If you want to do it this way, you can, and point to somewhere where you got code. I just literally installed ColdFusion anew on this machine, and then it's CFusion www root. I got a test.cfm that I just happened to open, and right now I do not have CFBuilder. So I know that's a very Spartan page, but it's a CF dump, a variable, and it's not color coded. There's no help. If I hit the space bar, it doesn't pop up and show me any attributes, because I have just installed VS Code and opened a file. You can do that. And it's interesting, note that it even shows CF as the logo. It seems to recognize CFM, but I've not told it to have the extension called CFBuilder. So to get the extension, and for those who've used VS Code for a long time, this is trivial, but for those who don't, it's a little different. Over on the left, among these buttons, one of them is called the extensions button. And when you click on that, it's got this marketplace of extensions, and it's looking at what is installed, which is nothing. It's ready to show me what's popular, which it will populate in a moment. There you go. Boom. Those are what are popular. But I'm looking for something related to ColdFusion. And I could say ColdFusion. I could say CFML. Take your pick. I'm going to say ColdFusion. Spell it right. All right, now listen, when you first search for it, it finds anything that it's recognizing that might be related to ColdFusion. And by the way, it doesn't have to have the word ColdFusion in it. That doesn't. Oh, that does. Yeah, there you go. But that doesn't. CFML doesn't have ColdFusion. CFLSP. Now, let me just say, so there's a bunch of extensions for ColdFusion, and the maker of it, there's their name. So Ilya, I mentioned earlier. Down the list will be Kamasama K, a very popular one. And some people might go, what do you mean that's down the list? I don't know what order these are presented in. You might go, well, no, there's a feature to sort them and all that stuff. Yes, there is. Here's sort by. And you could sort them by who's been installed the most or who's the highest rated or when they were published or when they were updated. And you might even think that's what this is. I don't think it is because I'm pretty sure that Ilias has not been updated in a long time. So I think by default, I don't know what order it's in, but let's move on. Among all these lists, there's ColdFusion Builder. And the way the interface works is if you click on it once, it's opening a little tab. Look, here's my tabs. There was a walkthrough of setting it up, and then here's my tab for that test page. And then here's the tab that got open for the introduction to ColdFusion Builder. And for now, we're just looking at it. And I just want you to see that on this page, there's lots of discussion. There's a link to the docs that I talked about. And then there's screenshots of how it works and the things that it can do, some of which we'll talk about in this presentation. But I want to repeat, we only have about an hour-ish that we want to talk, and I can't show everything that it can do. It would take too long. So this tries to introduce you to what's possible, and it's got links all along the way. Every place has a link to find out more about each of those things. So, don't think that we're going to cover everything in this talk. Anyway, having opened it, if we like it and we want to get it, and before we do, it tells you when it was published, when it was last updated, what its version number is, what its technical internal name is. I'll show you that in a bit with some other ones. And if you're happy with it and you want to install it, you just click the install button. It says, do you trust them? And it's Adobe, right? So hopefully you feel like you can trust them, and you can learn more about that. And they're not verified for whatever reason. It must cost money, and it hasn't been worth it for them. But the point is, I'm going to say, yeah, I trust them, and it's going to install it. And watch this little button up here that says installing. I'm not touching it in a moment. It's just going to switch to installed. Means it's done. And it just kind of flipped the recording. Hopefully that's just a glitch and you guys won't notice any difference when you listen to the recording. You guys are still there, right?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yep, we're here.
I lost track of the little screen that had the participants. So anyway, so I'll keep
You,
moving
we
on.
don't see your screen.
You don't see my screen. Wow, that's so weird. I wonder what happened. So just a second, let me find that. Zoom and share. That was weird. You guys ever had that happen? Okay.
All right.
All
Now
right,
we're
so we're
getting
back. Yep, you see it now? Cool. All right. So what I was saying is that having done that install, nothing really changes, nothing obvious. Uh, I will point out that over here on the left, if you happen to notice, it indicates that it's no longer to be installed, it's just installed. But anyway, the bigger point is to your, interface. Nothing's really changed. It doesn't like enable any new buttons. There's no tabs across the top that show up. Nothing. It's just that it's enabled itself in such a way that, for example, if I come down, yep, here you go. Let's say I do a CF query. I'm not going to do one right now. Okay, now I've experienced this before. Notice it's not doing anything. I hit the space bar and it didn't pop up. And in fact, back up. And by the way, this supports script as well as tags. So in fact, I'll do CF script. It should be that as I'm typing that, it comes up and tells me, oh, do you mean CF script? And before I even hit enter, typing it, I just hit enter. Boom, I've got my pair of tags. Well, that's not working. And I've seen this before. And I think that's just a matter of you need to close and reopen whatever file you happen to have open on the screen. So I'm just literally going to close it and see if that's enough. Now, like a lot of editors, I can say file, recent, open recent, and there's that file that I just had open. Let's see if that does it. So now I'm going to do CF. Well, there was the CF dump starting to come up, but that's not it. It's got some intelligence to already recognize that, but that's not what I'm referring to. So instead, I'm going to close it and reopen it. There's even a reload feature. I'm not going to discuss that now, but I'm just going to literally close it and reopen it. Oh, wrong thing to close. Don't want to close the sandbox. This guy. Close this guy. Yep. And then I'll just reopen it after me running in a Windows sandbox, which is a variant of a VM. And there's my Visual Studio Code. And now let me just see if I come in here and do CF. Now that's really weird. Why is that not working? Well, let me say this. This is I didn't do this in the presentation at CF Summit because I knew I didn't have time. Whereas for you guys, I was willing to take a minute to do this diversion. But this is great. I'm glad we're doing this because this still feels like it's not working, right? And some people say, see, that's what we're talking about. This thing, crap, doesn't work. Nope, time out, time out.
So Charlie, in the lower right corner there, it's complaining that you don't have a
Well,
newer
and
version of
beyond
Java.
that, I was going to get to that. But before that, I also want to say that here's the CF Builder icon over here on the left. And if I didn't have a CF page open, that wouldn't have appeared. But because I had a CF page open, that appeared. But if I were to click on this, it tries to launch that left panel of stuff, which we'll talk about later. And it too would have said, wait a second, I can't work because you don't have, yes, look in the bottom right corner. And this is my concern about using a big monitor. Sorry if that's really far away for your eyes. But yeah, down there it says a Java version greater than 7 is required to run CFML extension. Now that to me is frustrating because it's not that I have 7, it's that I have no Java. This was a VM, a Windows sandbox. I didn't install any Java. Now you might say, well, ColdFusion's got Java. Yes, ColdFusion's got Java, but CFBuilder doesn't know about it, right? So that's what I was trying to tell you is that it either expects there to be a Java runtime installed and it's offering this option to go to this page. And I just want to show you if I click that, VS Code is saying, I've been told to open a web page. You sure you want me to do that? You want to trust it or just go ahead and do it? I'll just go ahead and do it. And this is going to just open in whatever my default browser is. And yes, here on the Oracle site, you can get Java. Now, you don't have to use Oracle Java. No, you don't. For ColdFusion Builder, it does not require Oracle Java. ColdFusion Builder, remember, is running on VS Code, and VS Code is pretty flexible on what Java is willing to let you use. ColdFusion wants you to use Oracle Java, and you can only use that ColdFusion that Java that comes with ColdFusion can only be used, or your ability to use Java of your own version that you download an updated version, you're only licensed to use that with ColdFusion. So if we want to get a more, a Java that's not the one in ColdFusion, and whether we want to use a Temurin or any of the other ones that are out there, it's your call. But I'm just going to go ahead and get one of these guys. And here's a variant here, and there's different versions. There's Java 21. Let me just scroll down and show you that down this page, there's Java 17 and 11 and 8. So if you wanted to pick one, feel free. Remember, it said it's got to be above 7. So it could be 8, could be 11, could be 17, could be 21, could be 25. These are all different long-term support LTS versions of Java. There's literally 4, 5 different LTS support versions. So anyway, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Just pick one, you and your environment, just to decide what makes sense for you. I'm just going to go ahead and say Java 21. It's pretty recent and been around for a long time. Now, look, if you never do this stuff, there's Linux and Mac and Windows. You have to know to click on this to see the Windows stuff. And I'm just going to get the installer, which is this exe. There's an exe, an MSI, and there's a zip. Now, I could get the zip. I talk about this when I help people install updates to Java for ColdFusion. I elaborate on why using the zip is beneficial. And I point out that it does not mess with your Java home. It does not, touch anything about how Java is already installed. It's just a zip, you extract it. But we're using VS Code. It wants that Java home environment variable. And if you run this installer, it will implement the Java home environment variable. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. It's up here in the top right. And let me get this out of the way. There you go. And in a moment, there's that. There you go. I'm just going to run it. So again, I'm glad I did this because you could encounter this and wonder, what are you supposed to do? So I just click the installer, and here it is. The installer, again, if you're on a Mac or Linux, you can read this discussion about how to install it. There's installation instructions for Java right there. But with Windows, it's simple enough. You just download the installer and run it. And in a moment, it's going to pop up another little screen. And I'll just tell it that, yep, I want you to install this Java on this machine. And, let me just talk about this while we're waiting. In your development environment, if you already have Java, you're not going to run into this. It's if you don't have Java. Well, if you don't have Java, then you don't have to worry too much about doing this because you don't have one. You're not overriding what you already have. If you already have one, it would have found it and we'd be good. But many people don't have Java installed for whatever reason, and they might be using, Homesite Plus or Sublime or Subversion or sorry, not Sublime or what was the other one? Notepad plus plus. You don't need Java for those things. This thing wants Java. Now again, not ColdFusion Builder. ColdFusion Builder wants to leverage the Java features of VS Code. VS Code requires that you install this Java. Now, I don't know right now why this is hanging up. I apologize for that. There's no reason that should be hanging up. I kind of wonder. I mean, yes, it's a VM, but it's not a highly constrained VM.
That's
80%.
something I run into all the time in Sandbox.
Yeah, tell me if you solved it.
It just takes a long time. Anytime that
Wow.
the Windows installer.
Right, like I could imagine I was looking in here to see disk activity is nothing, so it's not
Yeah.
like the Defender scanning it.
No,
The
it's
network is 0, so it's not like it's congested. I think it's probably some sort of network, though, some constraint, like it's failing some calls out or what. Did you have an
it's a
idea?
known issue. It's just with Sandbox in general.
Right, but do you know what it's doing? Like, why would it hang? I would think
CPU cycles, even though it doesn't show in.
right, it doesn't show it, so that surprises me that anybody would assert that. Now, maybe the CPU was on the host, and we don't see it inside this guest. But let's move on. Thankfully, while we were talking, there it is. Now, has your experience been that it installs pretty quickly?
It'll hang quite a few times, but it'll
Hang?
finish.
Oh my goodness. Well, we'll leave it be. Listen, it's not important that we do this. The point is, you guys, you will find. I said this earlier in the talk. CFBuilder relies on the VS Code Java features. The VS Code Java features require that you install a Java. If you already have one and it's set the Java home path, if you know what I'm talking about, you're done. But if it doesn't, then you'll want to install a Java. And normally this takes like 5 or 10 seconds, maybe 20 on a constrained machine. I've never seen it take this long. I do this all the time with people installing Javas. So anyway, we're going to move on. We don't need to have that work. And let's get back to the Prezzo.
Randy, you got a question?
Yeah, go for it. Anybody?
Yeah, real quick, Charlie. You're saying basically that CFBuilder plugin for VS Code needs Java in order to operate. What
Well,
about
again, I said very specifically, the CFBuilder extension relies on the Java features of VS Code, and the Java features of VS Code require that you install Java yourself. It doesn't provide it. So Adobe doesn't provide it because you're installing CFBuilder as an extension on VS Code, and it wouldn't be appropriate for that to implement Java. And then VS Code does not choose to implement Java either, right? That's a choice they made. You have to install it. In fact, it's right there. CFBuilder's design requires Java to be installed. Again, I said CFBuilder's design, but I clarified it's that CFBuilder is being installed in VS Code. VS Code, if you want to use its Java features, and CFBuilder does, wants to use it. And I'm going to say real quick, I wish Adobe would think twice about this, because if you're not leveraging the specific features that necessarily require integrating with VS Code's Java, then maybe it wouldn't need it. But I think they've done it in such a way that they just presume that the majority of CFBuilder's features are going to somehow leverage that, and therefore they require it. And you saw, as we did. But anyway, go ahead with the rest of your question.
Real quick, Charlie, are there other plugins you would say that rely on the Java home as well? Or would you say majority of them, 50% of them, 20%, 10%?
Well, when you say extensions, we need to be clear. Any extension that works with VS Code's Java support would require it. So somebody could use 1,000 VS Code extensions and never need Java, because none of those extensions leverage the Java feature integration within VS Code. But then there's definitely other non-CF Java extensions that do leverage the Java features. So again, just to be clear, in case this is where the question's coming from, it's not that CFBuilder is unique in needing Java. It may be unique among all the extensions that the average person uses, but anybody that does Java stuff would probably find that some extension they need would leverage it. And I'll just say it one more time. It was Adobe's choice to leverage the Java integration in VS Code that requires that the VS Code support Java. And if I'd had more time, I was planning to add something to this. I'm going to do more. I'll talk about that later. But there's some other ways to configure the Java that does not require what we're doing. I didn't want to get stuck on this because there's so much more to discuss, but we're here. So let me just say this. There are other ways to implement this Java integration in VS Code that would not require you install Java, but you could point CFBuilder to whatever Java you already have. And there could be benefit to that. There can also be detriment, because if you then remove it and suddenly CFBuilder and VS Code stops working because it's expecting that Java there and you've taken it away and you pulled the rug out on them. But anyway, was there anything more to your question about that?
No, thank you. Brought some clarity to that one right there. Just make sure I reiterate that correctly. Thanks.
Yeah. Especially if you're talking to other
I have a
people.
quick question for you.
Yes,
If
sir.
you're using one of the other popular,
Oh, you're really faint. Like your mic is not the right.
are
Just
you
then you moved and we heard it better.
the other popular CF extensions like the comma thing or Ilia? Do they require Java? Is it like
No,
you're using it
they don't
fine,
leverage the Java
and
integration.
only when
No.
you install CFBuilder you need Java?
Yes.
Okay.
Now let me back up and say there are other CFML extensions that leverage the Java feature, but the common ones that people think of, like Kamasama K and Ilias and a couple of others, and I'll talk about those and their heritage in a moment. But that's a good point that someone could make, is that, well, I didn't have to do this with Kamasama K. Why should I have to do it with ColdFusion Builder? Because I'm going to tell you later that there's features that CFBuilder does that those don't do, and it leverages this Java integration. So let's leave it at that. It's a good
Okay,
question.
thanks.
Okay. All right. And there you go. So we talked about that. Cool. All right. So what about VS Code features? Why would one even be thinking about doing this with regard to moving to VS Code? Well, it out of the box provides many features that any developer would expect. So it's got code formatting, it's got code folding, it's got a built-in terminal, it's got word wrap, it's got themes, it's got file comparison features and a timeline. It's like a poor man's version control, and it's got Git integration, and it's got Emmet expansion for HTML and CSS, and it's got AI if you wanted, you can turn that off, and so much more. And I was saying earlier, and I'll repeat it, yeah, I could do multiple talks on helping you take full advantage of VS Code. And some of you that use VS Code might go, I didn't know about that thing, or I didn't know about that thing. So yeah, even people that use it all the time miss out on things. Trust me, I'm sure I'm missing out on things. And I'm not mentioning everything that I could, but my point is it's a very capable editor. And if you have any, I just want to stress that if you have any problem, don't presume it can't do it. Just presume you haven't found out how to do it. It's there. It's probably there somewhere, and you might have to configure something and just, dig on and or reach out to me, because I love this stuff. You ask me any question about this, and if I can answer it, I'll be happy to. And I will point out resources for learning more about all this stuff. And I showed you briefly, most things are available through menus or buttons you click or keyboard shortcuts, and those are configurable. And I want to say this before anything else: if you're using VS Code or CFBuilder, learn to use the palette, P-A-L-E-T-T, palette. Now, if you could be using VS Code all day, every day, and trust me, I help people all the time, and they go, what the hell's the palette? Why would I care? Because I do everything by clicking on buttons. I can do everything up here, but look right there under View, Command Palette, View, Command Palette. So it said Control-Shift-P, on a Mac, Command-Shift-P. In your OS, it'll tell you what these shortcuts are. And anyway, when you open the palette, it opens this thing up at the top of the screen, which might look like things you've done before, but it's a variation of it. Like, notice that little bracket? That's the greater than sign. If I take it away, now I'm searching for files by name. If I put in a % sign, I'm searching for other stuff. So again, this palette is very powerful. But my point is, when you open the palette, and by the way, because I use it all the time, another shortcut that it's connected to automatically by default is F1. So I just learned to hit F1. F1 is not help in VS Code. It opens the palette. So boom, you open the palette. Well, then you could look for anything you want that's a capability of the editor, of CFBuilder, of other extensions that might be enabled right now. Just so many things. So for example, I talked about It can do comparison. Look, file, compare active file with the saved version, compare the active file with a clipboard. And you might go, well, where's the menu for that? There is no menu for that. Oh, how would I have found it? Because you got to use the palette and just look for what you want. Like I talked about, well, some of these things are settings. I'll come back to that later because there's a similar sort of searchability of the settings. And if you're looking for how to turn off the AI support, you put it in here, it won't do anything. But when you go to the settings, you'll see it's searchable and you can find out how to turn off that. The point I'm trying to, let's, for example, say, I happen to have here some YAML file. If I type F1, hit F1 and type format, even before I type anything else, there's format document. I happen to have used it recently, so it comes right up. And if I hit enter, it's just formatted whatever it needed to do. It's formatted that YAML file. And because I now have CFBuilder in place, I don't know if I have any good. Yeah, it's okay. I'm just picking random pages and I'm going to do format document on that. Now check it out. I hit F1 and I don't have to type anything because this is the last thing I did. That's why I'm stressing the value of learning to use the palette. You just can reuse what you just did. I'm just going to hit enter and there you go. It just formatted it. Now somebody's going to go, well, I don't like how it indented that P tag. That's weird. Well, you can configure all that and I'll show you that in a bit. My point is, there's capabilities to this tool that there won't be a button for you to click. You've got to learn to use the palette and just type whatever you're looking for, and you might find that what you want is available as something already built in. So again, very important. Definitely check it out. And it's View Command Palette or just F1 or Control-Shift-P. Cool. There you go. And I showed you both those things. All right, now let's move on to CFBuilder. So what can it do? Now, I happen to be back on my main machine and I happen to be sitting in the CF page. And I'm just going to, like right here, just do an example. Like if I say CF query, as soon as I type CFQ, look, I didn't have to go any further. This one's working. We'll go to the other one in a moment, but this one's working. I type CFQ. I know a lot of people look at their keyboard and just spell everything by hand, but if you could learn to be, more of a touch typer, you go, oh, it's already got what I want. I can just hit enter. Right, and there's CF, and look, oh, there's my attributes. Now, again, I know other editors do this, so does CFBuilder. But if you don't implement any extension for CFML, you don't get this. And you're just typing everything all elaborately spelled out. And this is very intelligent to be able to, do things. So I'm going to leave it at that and move on. In fact, while we're got a moment, this is all done. Cool. So that didn't take too long. And then I'm going to go back to that. And I'm going to just, rather than play games with it, I'm just going to close it and reopen it again. Easy enough. And it just reopens to the last file I had open. And if I had a bunch of tabs, they would still be open. It's smart about that. By the way, I didn't show you this, but another cool thing about VS Code is, a lot of people like to make notes. This is a test. I can do whatever I want in here and close it. And I haven't saved that as a file. I just closed VS Code. It's gone. There's no button down here for it. Look at the bottom, no button for it. But when I reopen it, there's my notes. So you don't have to even save the file. It'll keep it open until you choose to save it or close it. Anyway, back to my CF page. So we were trying to talk about doing a CF script. So I'll do CFS. And since I type, well, it's funny. I don't know what we saw it open up a moment ago. It started to show stuff. Let me try CF query. We know that. There you go. There's that. And there's that. So that's working. And I put the closing tag. Now, listen, I know somebody, I don't like that it puts the closing tag on a new line. I wanted it to be at the end of the line, or I hated that the old one used to put at the end of the line. I like it on the new line. Or I want there to be 2 lines in there. All that's configurable. I'm telling you, all that's configurable. And some of you go, what about snippets? Yes, you've got snippet support. You can build your own stuff and have it build code for you. All that's possible. Let's go ahead and get back to the presentation. There's just so much to cover. We could get sidetracked very easily. So there was a bit of the IntelliSense, and there's more that they call code assist. And by the way, things like if I was creating a variable up above, I could refer to that variable. It would just fill it in and show me that variable was available. In the interest of time, I don't have time to demonstrate everything. Just trust me. You can go look at those docs I told you about. They will show you screenshots of doing these things. I just wanted to highlight the minimal things. So yeah, CFML tags, functions, script statements, they all appear as you start typing them. And you can hit enter to select them or use arrows to choose things. And you hit the space bar in a tag to see the attributes and control space to see values within an attribute. Really powerful stuff. Tag completion, like we talked about. Syntax help, you can mouse over things, right? I didn't show you that, but if I go back to the, there you go. If I just mouse over this CF query, look, it pops up and says, what is a CF query? Now, of course, no, the average person doesn't need that, but you might be opening somebody's code with some funny function that you've never seen before. You can just mouse over the function. You don't have to click anything, nothing. You just mouse over it and it pops up. And if you want to read more, you click that link and it takes to the docs page for that thing. And you won't get that similarly from all of the other editors. So, I have not yet done a elaborate comparison of what the others do and don't have. I'm just saying these are some things where some of it may not work quite the same or be the same. Just be aware. And there's still more. So let's keep going. Color coding, we saw that, and it's configurable. We'll come back to that. Code formatting, it recognizes both CFML and CFScript, and it formats it. Again, it's configurable. If you don't like it, there's that hover help. There's code navigation and outlining and folding, which will be more interesting if we look at a little more elaborate program. And just try to pick something. I didn't really think to open up. I don't know I don't have any really. We'll just go with this. So right here, so that CF loop. Notice there's a bar there. I can collapse that CF loop. That's what they mean by code collapse. And this P tag had multiple real lines. I could click on this and collapse them for whatever that's worth. All right, back to the presentation. There are mechanisms and keyboard shortcuts and actually even little UI things. So I said there weren't very many buttons and stuff, but look up here. There are some buttons for inserting things, wrapping things. And as we click the little ... you can insert a CF dump, a CF abort, a script block. And I'm telling you, you can also do snippets and you could configure them to appear in a menu, not this menu, but so there's pre-built stuff. You can add stuff. All right. So it's very, very extensible. And there's a lot of things that those who like to click things instead of knowing them and keyboard shortcutting them, they're there. And the shortcuts are shown so you can get to them. And then for just HTML and JavaScript and CSS, there's all these capabilities built into VS Code already, and you and your CFML page that do HTML or that do JavaScript or CSS, you'll leverage these capabilities for that stuff. And again, there's still more powerful features that we'll come back to. But like I said, what if you don't like these choices that they made for the formatting or the color coding or all that stuff? Well, check this out. On any CFM page, look, there's a profile preferences button that's in the lower right part of the screen, or you use the palette and type profile preferences. But I'm going to go back to my local one here. And I'm saying in the bottom right corner, very far bottom right corner, look down here at my mouse. I know it's really far away. And if you're on a phone looking at this, you're not even gonna be able to see the mouse, I understand. But anyway, there's a thing there called profile preferences. And if you don't ever think to click the buttons at the bottom of the screen, you wouldn't even know these things were there, right? But it's helping you, it's showing you, you just got to learn that they're there. Well, look at this. There's questions about, should the CFML be collapsed? What would be the default file if one was created? If we're doing code assist, what should it insert a closing tag? Should it be on a new line? Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is extensible and capable. The formatter, really capable. What do you want the indentation to? What do you want the white spacing to do? Do you want wrapping? What should you do with braces? And the braces are in script, of course. And then outlining and syntax checking. Very capable. So I'm just telling you, it's very capable. And you can create a profile and switch among profiles through this drop down, but the default one is there. And you can either change what the default one does or create a new one and start changing it to your heart's content. Just saying, it's configurable. All right. So there you go. That done, right? And then a few other things. When you look at that extensions and right click on that thing that was called ColdFusion Builder. So I'm going to go back over here. This is, if you mouse over them, it pops up and tells you what they are. You'll eventually learn this is the extensions one. See, it says extensions. And look, there's an update. Wow, that must have come out just recently because this one I had not yet updated. That's interesting. It says last 34 months ago. I guess this particular machine I'm on, I hadn't updated it. But what I wanted to say is that if you right click on it, there's capabilities to manage other aspects of how that CFBuilder works. Look at that. These aren't things that were on the profile preference. These are other things that some of them have to do with the configuration of Java stuff. So again, I'm going to leave this for now and just say that's covered right there. Other extensions you can tweak. That's how to get to it, how you can do it. And there's that, how to get to it if you choose to. And that word LSP at the end, that's a language server parser, I think. Do you know, Nick? You often know this kind of stuff.
Possibly, yeah. It's not.
I think that's it.
I don't.
Or
I don't
anybody
use
else?
this.
Yeah, anybody else feel free to speak up. An LSP is a kind of a framework for adding language support to editors like VS Code. And some of the current CFML extensions do not implement an LSP. So they're relatively limited in what they can do. Now, again, some people have been using those other ones for years and don't care that it doesn't do anything more because they don't miss what it doesn't do. But I'm going to be showing you things that CFBuilder does. And one of the reasons it can do the things that it does is that Adobe did implement an LSP. And I'm just saying that this was the thing to configure some settings about the LSP, but the whole thing underlying CFBuilder leverages this LSP, language server processor, what syntax, I forget what it means, but let's move on. You can also modify and view the keyboard shortcuts for CFBuilder features in particular. So in the steps above, we would choose keyboard shortcuts instead of settings for CFBuilder. So if we go back to this interface, I just want to show you because I know some people are really into this stuff. When I right-clicked on this, remember I went to extensions, there was CFBuilder because it was installed. I right-clicked on it, and there was keyboard shortcuts. Now check it out. When I click on that, these are the keyboard shortcuts for CFBuilder. It's the CF language processors shortcuts, and these are all the things it can do. And look at that scroll bar.
Oh, did we lose Charlie there?
Wow. So you guys still hear me, right? But you've lost the
Yeah, we just got you back.
Yeah, we got you.
How long was I gone?
4 or 5 seconds.
Wow, that's just so
Then
weird.
the screen sharing went away too.
Yeah, right. I'm fixing that right now, but I'm just so surprised. Let me just explain. I do this all day. I'm on calls with people on Zoom. This has never ever happened in probably 600 calls this year and probably 30 this month.
Wilson, when you came into the meeting, what was the first thing you said?
Oh, then we jinxed it because it was all going smoothly. Yeah, so
Yeah, I couldn't get screen sharing at all, as you well remember, in September. So couldn't get it to work at all.
oh, cool. All right. Well, yeah, so there might be something going on. That's weird. It's almost like your Zoom. Is it a hosted Zoom implementation at the university?
I mean, it's our tenant, but
I wonder if there could be some aspect of that, like they don't let you go for more than some amount of
No.
time. Anyway, right, let's move on. So I was just saying, I think you had seen I'd come into this page and shown how the scroll bar, there's a lot here, and it doesn't all have menu. Look, there's menu bars. The things that have menu bars are here. Then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Probably 70% of the other stuff did not have menu bars. So it's just very extensible. And it's not all oriented towards keyboard shortcuts. I was saying some things appear when you right click on various things, but let's move on. There you go, 80 features and your shortcuts. There you go. And I forgot I'd said all this. A third have shortcuts assigned. I had the math right there anyway. And you can add shortcuts for any of them. So if you see something there that you think you use all the time, you can add the shortcut. Boom. And you can configure the shortcuts for hundreds of Visual Studio Code features. And if you just take away that thing up there that I had showing the extension, just take this away. Now the scroll bar is really tiny, and this is all the things that are in VS Code and either what their keyboard shortcuts are or how you can configure them. And if you might go, how would I get to that? I'll never remember that. I believe it's going to be in one of these, like view keyboard shortcuts or something, I forget. Or if anything else, remember, hit F1 at the palette and type shortcuts. And there's help keyboard shortcuts reference. And actually that's opening a different page on my browser. It's a PDF of the shortcuts, but I don't know why this isn't coming up. It might be in a settings instead, but let's move on. That's not important to the presentation. You can do what I said there. That's what matters. And we'll talk more about configuring VS Code later. Now, this is where I want to say that some people would just leverage what we've talked about and be happy. And others read things or hear people say things that can be done that's more than just opening a CF file and editing things. And these are very powerful things that CFBuilder adds. And some of them are not in any of the other extensions for CFML. So there's code refactoring, where you can open a file, make a change, and tell it that change is going to have propagating effects on other code in the workspace of directory of code, and it can find it and make those changes or suggest that it's going to make them, and you can tell yes or no. And it's got quick fix capabilities to detect that something's not right, and it's offering, hey, I could fix this for you. And check this out, because you may not care about that, but this, many people should care about. CFBuilder, both the old Eclipse one and this one, has had this security code analysis feature. No other extension for CFML does this. And it's that it looks for vulnerabilities in your code and proposes fixes. That's built into CFBuilder. Now that leverages this additional configuration. Remember this at the bottom says requires additional, we're going to talk about that, but this will not work until you do that additional configuration. So again, simply, I tried to use that. It didn't come up. I saw the screenshots. Mine's always grayed out. What the hell's wrong with this thing? Well, what's wrong is that you didn't do the additional configuration. And if you read the docs from Adobe, they tell you, but people don't read docs, right? They just click buttons and ask on public forums and hope that the people answer and give them the right answer. So this is just some. Let's keep going. There's a code profiler. What? Code profiler? Yes. It works in association with ColdFusion's PMT, Performance Monitoring Tool Set. If you implement the PMT and tell it to profile some code, it will create a file which you can then import into CFBuilder, and it will analyze that file and produce an analysis of the performance of stuff. So I'll leave it at that. We don't have time to get into all this stuff. There's a step debugger. Yes, CFBuilder has always had, now has in VS Code as well, step debugging. And if you just configure it right, I promise you it works. You can step through your code line by line, watch each line execute, see the values of variables, do all kinds of cool stuff that you expect from a debugger. Yes, that's built in. And again, virtually none of the other extensions do that for CFML. Then this stuff also leverages talking to some instance or many instances of CF, so they call it server management. It could be your own local copy of ColdFusion that I'll show you on that VS sandbox that I have. I'll show you how that works there. But the point is you can definitely connect CFBuilder to some instance of CF, either locally or elsewhere if you have firewall stuff set up correctly. And that becomes sometimes the key to these things working. And if you don't do that, then it doesn't work. Or if you can't do that, then it won't be able to work. So again, if we just focus on what about my local development environment? Now, I know some of you don't have a local development environment with ColdFusion. We'll talk about that later. But the point is, if you do, you can connect your VS Code CFBuilder to your local ColdFusion and leverage all these capabilities, because these things are all talking to ColdFusion to get stuff clear about how it should work. And it's premised on this thing called RDS, for remote access to the code of that CF server or the data sources of that server, or just talking to that server for admin settings. Now, some of you at that point go, well, see, that's why we don't use that, because I've been told forever RDS is insecure. Do not use that. Well, it's not that it's insecure. It's that you should be careful to carefully configure it so that it is secure. And there's plenty of ways in the past 5 or 6 versions of CF that it is more highly secured out of the box, and it uses a non-standard port. So you'd have to open the port, and there's ways to configure it to be more tightly secured. Again, I could do a whole talk on that topic alone. We don't have time today, but just remember, if we're just talking about your local development environment, no one's going to be able to get into your machine, right? You have a firewall in your OS, you have a firewall in the environment you live in or work in. No one's going to get in from the outside. And in any case, by default, the OS would block the port to be accessible to anybody but you, unless you chose to open it up. So again, let's move on. These are subjects that can get really elaborate. There's features in CFBuilder for building SQL. Yeah, and an editor. You can right-click on your CFML that's got a CF query and cause it to open up the SQL and see it and edit it and execute it against the database using the data source defined in ColdFusion to talk to the real database wherever it is, even if it's on another machine. Yes, that's all possible. And there's a log viewer to look at your ColdFusion instances logs. Yes, there's a services browser to see the available web services. And I don't think it does REST services. And again, if this is a day-long workshop, I'd demonstrate each one of these, but we don't have time. So they're just trust me, they're all very powerful capabilities. There's resources about doing every one of these from Adobe that are documented. Just you got to take the time to read about it and overcome whatever challenges you face, and I can help you with that. And the key is these things do need to talk to your CF server to get some administrative configuration or to find out the relationship of files, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes these things require that you define a project that holds your code, right? A lot of things in CFBuilder, I've even shown you, I just open a file or I open a folder with some ColdFusion files in it. But some things require that you identify what they call a project that names where your code lives. And that project currently has to be in what they call in VS Code a workspace. Now, I talked to the CF guys at CF Summit, and they're going to remove that requirement that it be in a workspace because that's not really adding anything. That's kind of a holdover from the old CFBuilder. We don't need it. They're going to take it away. But for now, you'll need to do this thing of creating a project that points to your code that and put it inside of a workspace that could be anywhere. It's just metadata about the project. So again, the workspace can be anywhere. It's just a folder where some metadata gets put, and the project is where your code actually lives. And that can be anywhere. By the way, it doesn't need to be in ColdFusion's www root. You're going to see a lot of examples where Adobe shows that, but you can absolutely point it to other folders anywhere, htdocs under Apache, inetpub, www root under IS, or anywhere at all that you can point them. You can point, or whatever web server you use, Nginx, doesn't matter, wherever your code is, in a temp directory that you pulled down from, Git. Absolutely, all of it's possible. But some features will only work if that folder is accessible through some URL in your browser, right? So I just want to clarify. I just said you could put them in a temp directory, pull down from Git, yeah, to look at it and edit it. But if you want to browse that code, it's got to be in some web accessible folder wherever ColdFusion lives. Now, that could be on your local development machine. That could be on some other server. You'll configure CFBuilder to point to some CF instance. And as long as the code you're trying to work with is accessible in some browser of that server, you'll be able to, my point is you'll be able to leverage features like the debugger because you'll be able to tell ColdFusion Builder, I'm editing this file that is related to this file on the server. And as I step through the code locally, I can be stepping through the code on the server because it'll talk to it through this underlying Java communication debugging capability that's built into Java, that's built into CFBuilder, that's available through ColdFusion if you enable it, blah, blah, blah. So again, a whole nother discussion. We can't get into all of that today. Here's some discussion of how you go about in CFBuilder configuring a project. It may have sounded complicated. It's really not. My point is check that out to learn about that. And I mentioned that this upcoming update will remove that requirement of workspace. Now, some features require that you also define a connection to a server. We were just talking about that. So let me just show you quickly in my local machine, just because it's faster. Over here under my CF logo, I happen to have already created some connections to servers. They're going to come up in a moment. I have these 3 different versions of CF already configured and running. And for example, I could right-click on this and say, show me the ColdFusion administrator. And it's going to launch in my browser, and the screen you're not seeing, but there it is. There's my ColdFusion 23 CF administrator because I created a connection to it. And I'll just edit it to show you that one. And again, the docs for ColdFusion Builder walk you through the screen, tell you what to fill in. I say, where is the server? What is the port? Now, you might have 8500. I create the port for each of my CF instances to be the version number. So 8500 becomes 8523 or 8521 or 8525. You could decide when you set up ColdFusion what the port will be. The point is you're telling CFBuilder, here's where my ColdFusion instance is. Here's the port to get to that ColdFusion instance. And then by default, it's a CF Tomcat bundle. Most of you would not be doing anything else. And then if you want to use this RDS stuff, we could talk about that later. I don't think we'll have time, but in the ColdFusion Administrator, there's a page called RDS, and you can define a user and give it a password. And then you would test, can you connect successfully in the bottom right corner? I'm connecting successfully to that server on that port using this RDS. Therefore, all the features in CFBuilder that I want to use are going to work if I got a project that's pointing to this server and it's local. It could be remote, and if it was remote, it would change what it asks for. But again, I'm not going to get into all that right now. So again, read the docs for more on that stuff. I know I'm going through this quickly, but trust me, we're going really slow compared to the talk because I knew I didn't have a lot of time. We're at about an hour since we started, right? I wasn't paying exactly when we started, but it's about an hour.
You're about
right?
an hour and 10 minutes now.
Already 10 minutes after? Wow, okay. I didn't catch that we started that late. All right, cool. So anyway, there's that. There's that. It's got to be reachable, right? So you might have to open firewall ports. And here's the documentation for how to do that. And that's not a mistaken URL. I know it says add ColdFusion Builder VS Code extension. That's not what it should say. It should add ColdFusion Server. Anyway, that's the URL. And it enables RDS file view and data view features, if you know what those are from prior working with other things like Dreamweaver or CF Studio or ColdFusion HomeSite Plus. Those were there then, they're there now. And again, the key is that it empowers these features where CFBuilder needs to talk to, like if you're going to look at SQL, it's got to talk to your data sources, which then talk to your databases, or it might look for CFCs. We didn't talk about this, but you can have it find CFCs, and it knows where CFCs are on your ColdFusion instance because you've told it, hey, here's the admin, you know the mappings, you know the custom tag paths. It's going to look that up and find a CFC, which again, another editor that doesn't do that talking to the server, all it can look for is what CFCs exist in the folder structure of the files you're looking at. But you know, ColdFusion doesn't work that way. It can look in what's in locally, but it starts by looking, or it has different search orders, but if it doesn't find it, it can find it in your mappings or in your custom tag path. Well, CFBuilder can talk to the CF server or your local machine that has defined mappings and use those mappings. Other things don't do that. So again, that's why you have to connect a project to a server, and that's discussed in there. And the debugger and the security analyzer definitely also require that you connect your project of code to a server that it can talk to. Okay, we'll leave it at that. I'm clicking buttons and it ain't moving. That's weird. I've never had that happen before. That's still working. There you go. All right, so some of you use command box. Listen up, if you use command box, when you do that connection of a server that I just talked about, you're going to get told, hey, that's an invalid server home. And it's very confusing because it's not clear what it's talking about. Again, something's going on where I'm losing my focus. But I've got solutions to this problem in an Ordis community forum where somebody asked the question. I showed how to solve it. So go check out that URL if you want to use command box to look at, if you want to use ColdFusion Builder to look at a command box instance of CF. It can be done. You just have to do a couple of extra steps, and there's a couple of choices, and I'll leave you to read about that. All right, so what about those other CFBuilder, CFML extensions? And by the way, you guys do usually go longer than an hour, right? So we're okay to keep going?
Yeah, we usually have about 2 hours reserved, so plenty of time.
There you go. And if you guys are cool with it, I'll keep going. Okay. And feel free to interrupt anybody along the way with a question or to say you got to go, whatever. All right. So let's talk about that comparison to the other editors. And it's family tree time because some of them are new, but really most of them are orphaned. So before you go using a particular one, it might have not been updated in several years. So among the ones that are newer or currently updated, check this out, CFML Editor. CFML Editor, and that's the name. Again, if you look at the technical name of it, it's called CFML Editor.cfml Editor inside of VS Code. But if we went to the extensions marketplace and looked up CFML Editor, it would find it. It's from Gareth Eddies. He forked it from Kamasama K. So a lot of people use Kamasama K. That's because it comes up in the list of, what's installed the most. It's been around the longest. It's installed the most. But we're seeing a moment. He stopped editing it a long time ago, and different people have stepped up. And the latest one that's currently running it is this variant from Gareth called CFML Editor. And it's pretty much just a fork of it without too much new stuff. But I'm not going to debate and analyze that. I'm just saying it is a fork of it. And Boxlang from the Ortus folks, Boxlang is a server. We had one of the talks I believe you guys had recently on that. Boxlang is a platform with a new language called Boxlang, but it's also a platform on which you can run CFML. Yes, you can run CFML on Boxlang. And they forked this thing from Vadim, we'll see in a moment, and it was based on Kamsake. So anyway, I'm just letting you know that's, if you look into the etymology of these things, you'll see that. And they had not really added a lot of new CFML functionality to it. They're working on it, and maybe since I gave this talk, they've done something new. But you'll find that for the most part, when I gave the talk in September, they confirmed that there wasn't really anything new about that extension for CFML. It was more new stuff about Boxlang, and they were bringing along this stuff that's everybody else is sharing. Now, they've recently packaged that into something called the Boxlang Developer Pack. Well, that's just a grouping of 4 things, one of which is this Boxlang CFML extension. So it's not new or different to us. It's going to give you the same thing that Boxlang gives you, which is the same thing that Vadim's gives you. And Vadim's is one of these orphaned ones. So it was called VS Code CFML, and his name was Vadim Sidoryansky. And he last updated it in 2023. Well, he forked that from Kamasama K, and the formal name is VS Code-CFML or just CFML, and there's the formal name for it. Well, he last updated it in 2022. And guess what? He'd adapted that from the one called Ilia or VS Code-ColdFusion, and it was last updated in 2018. And as you look at the GitHub repos for these things and the informational pages that come up, you're going to find that they pretty much all repeat the same thing that Ilya said is repeated in Kamasama K's, which is repeated in Vadim's, which is repeated in the subject of discussion of CFML stuff in the Boxlang one, and is repeated almost verbatim in the one from Gareth. So they're just all forks of the same, essentially the same thing, with maybe some changes over the time. They're clearly updated, so I'm not saying they're not changed, but they're essentially the same thing. The docs look identical. Their capabilities are pretty much nearly identical. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's an interesting thing to discover when you dig into it. Then there's another one that's called Sketchpunk, and it was last updated in 2015. But you're going to find these things on the left when you do the search for ColdFusion. And I'm just saying, unless you think to look into it, you're not going to notice, hey, there's a lot of similarity, or hey, this thing hasn't been updated in 10 years. So just be careful. And some are Lucy only, like CFML formatter might seem compelling when you find it, but that's not for ColdFusion. That's just for Lucy. It literally leverages some stuff in Lucy that you won't be able to take advantage of. And I'll say again, beware judging them by the install count, because obviously older ones are going to have larger install counts, and they keep going up because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy of high install counts. I wish things like this would go, what about in the last year, right? Because then that would be a little more, I won't say honest, but a little more accurate to know what's being most recently installed. And I'm not saying that CFBuilder would necessarily be higher in the list, but it might be. Point is, it would just be more reasonable to wonder what's been downloaded a lot in the last year or two compared to what's been downloaded over the past 10 years. And I mentioned this earlier, this default sort order is an undefined algorithm. I've even looked into it. It's not the install count. It's not the update date. It's not the rating. So I'll leave you to explore that if you're interested. So what did or do these other ones for CFML offer? Well, again, consider they're all basically a fork from Kamasama, Ilya, and Vadim. The things they offer, which CFBuilder does as well, is color coding, code formatting, hover help, code assist, snippets, configurability. And then they do offer some things that CFBuilder does not, like linting, right? I know some people go, I need that. We want linting. Well, the linting that's available is an extension called CFLint. And if you want to add that, you can add that to CFBuilder. They didn't add it. And I don't know that these guys do. I think they just talk about how you can configure it. So anyway, you can do linting. And they don't, back to Rick's question earlier, they don't require Java like CFBuilder does. And they don't use the project and workspace mechanism like CFBuilder does for some of its features. Well, if you really are following everything I'm saying, you'll understand that. So CFBuilder would, in essence, be very similar to these. And you might go, well, then why would I use it? Well, you'd use it because you can leverage these additional features that it has. But to do that, you have to do these additional steps that they didn't require. So it's a, conundrum. If you just try to install it and try to use it and it doesn't work, you start complaining in public that it doesn't work. And it's not that, it's that you have to configure things. And so, like I said, for a lot of people, what they've gotten is enough and they leave it at that. And I'm not complaining that they shouldn't, but I'll just lament that they're missing out, right? And so what about the things that CFBuilder offers that they do not? Well, I listed those 10 features previously, which rely on defining a project and or maybe a server. Those things are not in any of these other extensions. Now, what about other traditional editors, right? I know some of you are stuck with Dreamweaver. Well, if you didn't know, support for CF, along with ASP and JSP, were dropped in 2013, 12 years ago. There has never been an update for newer CFML since basically CF10. And you go, that's all I use. Okay, that's fine. If you're happy with Dreamweaver, okay. But just know that it doesn't get updated for CFML at all. And, beware. CF Studio, that was dropped in 2001. And then HomeSite Plus was the renaming of it, and it was dropped in 2009. Those things are really old in the tooth, like some of us. Anyway, moving on. I get that some of you may still favor Notepad++, Sublime. I get it. Check it out. First of all, CFML support for those ended respectively almost 15 years ago. So you can do CFML in Notepad++ and Sublime. There's extensions of them that make things pop up and tag completion and all that. Maybe you never even use those, right? I get it. You can just use Notepad++ or Sublime or whatever your favorite editor is, and it doesn't have to know how to spell ColdFusion because it's just an editor. Cool. If you're happy with that, great. But if you want the CFML support, I'm just saying, part of what you're getting in these modern VS Code extensions is they have that built-in CFML support for more and more recent variants and languages of CFML. And of course, Adobe has a 2025 version of CFBuilder that supports CF 2025 syntax and 2023 syntax and 2021 syntax. But again, people love how those other editors just open fast and are straightforward. Well, I'll say that so does VS Code. It's just an editor. You can open it very quickly and it works very fast to edit files. But each of them have their own ways, and you get used to your certain keystrokes and where the buttons are and how to use your snippets. And so I get it that it's, again, like changing your hand. It's hard to switch editors, but I'm just letting you know there's things that can help you. For example, there's VS Code extensions that will make it look and feel more familiar to a Notepad++ person or a Sublime person. Yes, that's a VS Code capability that you could add if you wanted to. It might be good to cut it off and move on, right? But if you need that to ease the transition, it's available. So now what about things that you wonder about? I said snippets. Yes, you can configure snippets in VS Code, not even in CFBuilder, in all of VS Code. It's under File, Preferences, Configure Snippets. I'll leave you to explore that. There is a CFML JSON into which you can configure CFML specific stuff. And there's comments in there about how to configure your own snippets. And then you implement them with the palette and you type F1 for the palette and you type snippets and you'll see the choice of insert snippets and you'll see an interface to pick the snippets. And once you've done that, it's there in the palette list and you can just hit F1 and click on it and there it is. Or you can make a shortcut to open that if you want to. Okay, let's move on. What about FTP? I know some people, I live and die by FTP. I got to be able to FTP. Well, listen, CFBuilder, like a lot of recent things, don't support FTP anymore. But there are extensions for it, and they would recommend you consider instead SFTP, which is based on SSH, or look at the RDS feature of CFBuilder. But anyway, FTP is kind of hard to come by on VS Code. Got nothing to do with CFBuilder. I guess I should have said VS Code offers no features for that, and CFBuilder offers no features for that, but there are extensions. So what about WYSIWYG editing, like in Dreamweaver? Yeah, that's really no more. Nobody does WYSIWYG. And if you think about it, that wasn't really ever as great as you'd hope. Because if you had CFML building HTML, the editor didn't really know how to convert your CFML into WYSIWYG. It just knew how to do the HTML. So no WYSIWYG available. I haven't even found an extension that does it. And those that do, all they're doing is open another browser and making it be simultaneous editing and browsing. And there's features for that if that floats your boat. But that's not WYSIWYG editing in the editor. Anyway, moving on. Can you configure the quick access buttons, those things up in the top right corner? yes, there are these several options in the top right, but no, I've not found that you can add things to it. I've tried and I've not found it. So you can't add more things to it. I appreciate that some would like that. So let's move on. What are some challenges? By the way, anybody have any questions on anything I said so far before we talk about challenges and solving them?
Not a challenge, but you did miss IntelliJ's idea as a CFML editor.
Okay, so did it have CFML support? I don't remember that.
Yep, it's had it since 2010.
And I believe I just updated my CF41 list. I have CF411.com, some of you know, and I just updated it about a week ago. And I do believe now I did find that, in fact, let's just look. I think I saw that IntelliJ had been updated.
It does require the idea version, not the community version. So that's
the paid one, right? Everybody
Yep.
understand that difference. So let's just look for editors, right? So I've got CFML editors and other editors. Now I don't have IntelliJ up there, but there's
you do right there. Yep.
No, what I'm saying, I don't have it under
Oh.
CFML editors. I have it under other editors without CFML support. But right, it's only available. And what I did track is the Ultimate Edition then. But I did show that it was updated in 2025. So I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's been kept up to date. Whoever's responsible for it. So I should move that up, but it is only in that paid version.
Yep. And the nice thing with that one too is it also has the full support for Lucy as well, and all of their crazy additions like tag clouds and all that stuff.
There you go. Good deal. There you go. There you go. Do you know who's behind that? That'd be nice to know who that was.
They do it in-house.
Wow, that's just amazing, right? Good for them. So thank you for that. I'll try to remember to add it and to move that up. In fact, let me just write down really quick before I lose track, because this is the kind of thing you say you'll do and then you don't do, and I don't want to do that. So give me a second. Okay.
Nick, wasn't there a woman that was doing it for him? I seem to remember a long time ago some references. They were going to drop it and she rallied support.
She was the evangelist. She was also the evangelist at the time for their Flex and like the AS3 support. But the actual developers, it's been a different series of developers every time. It's probably one of their interns who just keeps on updating it, but either way, it still works.
Yeah, cool. So thank you for reminding me. Yes, I will add that to the list for sure. Cool. All right. Excellent. Let's move on. So some frequent ColdFusion Builder challenges, right? So we saw that one. Java version greater than 7 is required. And let's just quickly go back to my sandbox version and I think we already proved this, didn't we? Yeah, it was working. Exactly. So yes, as soon as we added that Java 8 or above so that it was available, basically, so if I open the command line now and type Java -version, it should report 21. There you go. So if you can go to the command line of the environment you're in and type Java -version, that tells you that you have what's really technically called a public JRE, and that got implemented by that installer of that Java that I got. And you can get that if you install Tamarin or what are the other variants are now. What's the other one? Maybe Nick, you're into that. There's a new name for the open source Java. Or is
there's
it still
there's the OpenJDK, AWS or Amazon has a version.
Of course, Corretto. I meant the one that's the OpenJDK generic one that everybody thinks of. Is it still just called Tamarin?
Not sure.
Yeah, I'll let go. I'm just saying, Corretto, there's many variants, Azul, Zulu, and others. Moving on. The point is, if you have a public JRE, that's all it's going to care about. And when I first installed this VM, no, I didn't have one. So when I installed VS Code and CFBuilder, it said, hey, you don't have it. As soon as I added it, restarted it, now it worked. And there's the way you can know if it should work for you. Okay, moving on. So we got that. And there's more about that even in the docs from Adobe. If you go to this page and that install anchor at the end there, it will talk about this. So it's covered. Just got to read the docs. Some features won't work unless you put the project and then connect the project to a server. So we talked about that. When you first launch things, often, like if you point to a folder, it'll be in restricted mode. VS Code is trying to protect you and say, hey, I just don't want to let you open up any old file. Do you trust whoever created this folder that it's in? And you can trust its parent if you want to. And if you don't, then certain extensions will be disabled. Most extensions, I think, all extensions will be disabled. So if people say it doesn't work, well, it's often because they're in restricted mode and they said yes or no to the question and moved on. And they didn't realize that by doing that, by saying no, don't trust it, then you don't get any extensions. So there you go. There you go. And you can choose to trust it. There you go. All right. And also be aware that other extensions can cause conflict. So if you have both, let's say Common K and ColdFusion Builder, they're going to clamor over doing something to a CF page. So you should disable one of them. And let me just show you really quickly how easily you can do that. If I come back over to this extensions thing, I can right click on and disable any extension, or in this workspace only, but leave it open in other workspaces. So that's it. And if I click on it like that up here, I can disable it in just the workspace. So it's really easy to disable one. You don't have to uninstall it. You just disable it. So there you go. This is an unfortunate thing. I found that sometimes you configure a project and then you close VS Code and reopen it and the project's gone. We didn't really talk about this too much, but in that CF thing here, when I was looking up here, like right now, you see I've got no workspace, no project, and I could configure one, and it's covered in the docs about how to do it. It's literally in here. So I'll leave you to read it. But you'll find that sometimes you'll configure one and then it'll disappear. And you can re-import it. That's what that important button is. You can import a project, point to where it is, it'll get brought right back in. But it's annoying that sometimes you lose it. And I've pointed that out to the CF team, and I hope that they'll work on that. Okay. And you can disable VS Code features that may annoy you. So listen, those of you guys that use VS Code that don't care about CFBuilder, you might perk up with this. Somebody at the conference talked about this. Appreciated hearing this. That sticky scroll that appears on the right. Sorry. See if I can get an example. You need a pretty big template. I just didn't think to open something. I think I just have really small files here, so I can't really demonstrate it. But when you have code that's pretty deep with nesting of things, as you scroll down, up at the top level thing that you were looking at will stay there. And it could be on line 3, and then you'll scroll down and there'll be another nested thing, and it'll be on line 23. Well, you'll see line 3 and 23 and then all the rest of your code. And you'll scroll down and it sticks the outermost things that you're looking at. It could be a method in a CFC. It shows the name of the method at the top. Well, that's there to help you. But if you find it annoying, it drives some people crazy because they're in really deep nesting of things and 10 lines are blocked. Well, you just right click on that. When that appears, you just right click on it and you'll see an option that says to disable sticky scroll. I don't have it here to show you, but you can just disable that thing called sticky scroll. We'll leave it at that. The mini map, again, it appears on the right side of the screen as a kind of a pictorial representation of where you are in your code, all minimized. So you know, if you're in 1,000 lines, you can see you're in the top third or bottom third. Well, some people find that annoying. We just right click on it and disable it, and you can make it go away. And the constant nagging about Copilot features and AI, you can go into settings, that's Control Plus, and then look for disable AI. And boom, you will no longer see the annoying pop-ups and features asking you to configure Copilot support in VS Code. I want to share that if you open a folder that's different than the files you got open, you'll be prompted to whether you want to save those files before it opens that folder. And that's really annoying. Well, there's a solution to that. And it doesn't happen if you just open a file. But if you don't want to lose the tabs, well, there's a couple ways to solve it. You can just open a new window. So check this out. I think I might even be able to demonstrate it right here. Yeah, sure. So if I tell it I want to open a folder, now you can use open recent and point to folders. So I'm just going to pick a folder, any folder, doesn't matter. I'll pick that. and it says, hey, you've got a bunch of tabs open, including files that I'd never saved or files where I've made changes that I haven't saved. And it's saying, if you proceed to save each one, I'll close them. But if you don't save them, I'll get rid of them. Or I might say, no, wait, I don't want to lose all those tabs. I don't want to save everything. I like them that way. So what else can you do? Well, one thing you can do is you can say File, New Window. If you say File, New Window, check it out. You get a whole new window. Everything's gone. Your extensions are still there. The ones that are installed universally are still there. And then you can just proceed to work with this as its own window. Yeah, you can open a new window. And that was a big help for somebody at the last talk. There's another solution. I'll show that later if we have time. So there you go. Oh, sorry. And then you can say File, Open Folder. And if that folder has no extensions, then you can choose to enable extensions or not, and it's in its own thing. And it allows you to try different extensions. You can have one window that has some extensions and another window that doesn't have extensions. You don't have to uninstall them or disable them. They can just not even appear. So anyway, you can tell it to save a profile and tell that profile to have some extensions, which again could be useful if I want to play with using CFBuilder. I want to play with using Common K. I want to play with using Boxlang developer pack. When you're viewing files in the File Explorer on the left, I'm going to show you this because it's not obvious and it throws people off because it's just a VS Code feature to be aware of. Go back to that one that's got a lot of code in it. And do I have a folder? Yep, got a folder. Yep. So if I single click on a file, it's opened it up here in the top right corner and it's kind of italicized. Well, watch, I've got this, then I've got that. Now I'm going to click on this and look up in the top right. It's gone. Now I happen to already have that one open. Let me pick a different one that I probably would like, this git ignore. I'll do that. So look, that git ignore, it's italicized. But if I open this contributing, what happened to the git ignore? Well, if you single click on a file, it opens it, you can edit it, but you can also just click on other files and it's like you're just opening that file and not taking up tabs. If you want to keep it open, you just double click it. And so there's no difference other than it's not italicized anymore. And now when I open contributing, it opens to the right and the license is still there. Not a big deal, but when you're first working with this and you don't know what's going on, it can drive you mad. What the hell? I opened this thing already. Why isn't it there? So just be aware, there's a difference between single clicking it and double clicking. And I said this earlier, you can create files and close it and not have to save what you typed in, including editing a file that you're not ready to save it yet. You've already got it saved, but you're typing in there and you don't want to save it yet. Yeah, if you close the editor and reopen it, it's still there with your unsaved changes ready to be reused or saved, whatever you want. And these are all VS Code tips. I'm just still talking about VS Code, not CFBuilder. So you can sync your VS Code settings across machines. There's an option to log into VS Code. And if you do log into one VS Code and then you log into another machine that has VS Code, you'll share the extensions, you'll share the workspaces, whatever is shareable, you'll be able to share it. And I want some of you to know this because you don't like VS Code because it sends that telemetry stuff, usage data back to Microsoft. That's terrible. Well, you can opt out of it. Under settings, just open settings, control comma, and then search for telemetry. And you'll find there's a few checkboxes there that you can uncheck. And now VS Code is no longer sending any telemetry to Microsoft. So remember, you can turn off the AI, you can turn off the telemetry. And now you're hopefully not so worried about the Microsoft aspect of it. But there's VS Codium if you are still worried. I mentioned you can enable Emmet text expansion. To do that within a CFML file, check this out for those who are interested in it. I'm not going to explain what Emmet is. If you know what it is, you can get it for CFML files by just editing this settings.json, and you can learn about that from reading about it. In the settings.json, you just add this little bit of line of code, and now you've got Emmet capability. And that's what some of the other editors for CFML do. Adobe just hadn't gotten around to doing it yet. So you could do it, and now you got Emmet support in CFML for HTML, and then you could add other stuff if you want to. So I got to move on. Again, I could just go on and on and on. I don't have time. So now about implementing CFBuilder and VS Codium. Again, some are just adamantly against Microsoft licensing, don't want the telemetry, don't care that it can be disabled. They're going to use VS Codium, which is built from the same source code as VS Code, has no license for Microsoft, is a permissive MIT license, no Microsoft branding, no telemetry. Again, you can disable it. It uses its own marketplace, which is this domain, openvsx.org. VSXs are the name of the extension packages. So my CFBuilder's got a VSX. My point is, CFBuilder is not in that open marketplace, and I've talked to Adobe about it. They're thinking about it. But for now, you cannot go in VS Codium to the marketplace and search for ColdFusion and find ColdFusion Builder. You'll find Kamasama. You'll find Ilias. You'll find Voxlang, I think. I don't know. But my point is, what can you do? Well, you can implement it. You just need to have the VSIX file. This VSIX is the name of the file that all extensions are built from as a package, and the package managers and the marketplaces just download this VSIX. Now, the problem is there was a time when you can go to the marketplace of VS Code and save a VSIX, but you can't anymore. But what you can do is this. One, you can install CFBuilder on a VS Code, and there's a download feature. If I go back to this, here, and go to the extensions and go to this gear right here, look, there's download VSIX, which was also the same thing as right-clicking on it, download VSIX. That would download from this VS Code that ColdFusion Builder that had been installed into it. Now I've got the VSIX as a file. I could now take that file to a machine on which I had VS Codium or open my VS Codium, and there's a way to import them. And I'm just going to show you that you can do that in here as well. You can implement extensions. The interface for VS Codium looks exactly the same. It's just stuff, branding and stuff that's missing. When you're looking at the extensions up here at the top, there's a ... and you can install some package, some extension from a VSIX. So I just want to be clear. I'm in VS Code, I can install from a VSIX. In VS Codium, I can install from a VSIX. I can export CFBuilder out of VS Code to a VSIX and then take that file and go to VS Codium and install it same way. Simple as that. So for those who care, that's how you do it. And here's a link to get it. There's a website called vsixhub.com. And this is the number for the CFBuilder, and it's up to date. So you can go get this. Now, granted, that's an open community project. I don't know who's responsible for it. That you might not want to do that if you're not trusting things like that. Then just go get your own VS Code, install CFBuilder. Now, I've asked Adobe, please consider putting their VSIX in that marketplace that's used by VS Codium. Until they do, this is what you can do. All right, so there you go. I've talked about that. Bing, bing. Cool. And everything we've talked about will work the same in VS Codium as in VS Code. Some problems that you might encounter. First of all, consider that VS Code and CFBuilder both have logs. If you open the palette and type developer, open extension logs folder, or if you just type the palette and type logs, it'll come up. That's the formal name of it. You can see the logs for CFBuilder and the logs for VS Code. And I mentioned there have been updates, 4 of them in 23, 24, and 25. And you can download them, as we saw in that interface. You can log bugs about CFBuilder and file feature requests. Don't just put up with something that bugs you. Don't just complain in the community. Go to tracker.adobe.com and file a bug report or file a feature request. You'll see that there's a drop-down, and you can pick CFBuilder just like you can pick ColdFusion. And actually, you can also do ColdFusion and pick ColdFusion Builder within ColdFusion, or there's a ColdFusion Builder product. And there's only 17 extensions filed so far, and only 5 from 2025. And 11 of the 17 have been fixed. So yes, get your extensions in, get your vote in. Your vote matters. And then you can seek help in the community. And on my website called cf41.com, I've got a CF Social Help. And you can use these URLs to get to it. Just do that /CF Social Help. And I go to my category of all the places you can get help, from the Adobe forums, the Orders forums, the Lucy forums, the CF Facebook group, the CF LinkedIn group, the Slack channel, so many places you can get help. And then lastly, since we're talking about CFBuilder, if you encounter problems, just email Adobe, CFSUP, CF support, cfsup@adobe.com. And if it's not something they think is appropriate for them, they'll tell you where you should send it instead. Or you can always reach out to me. I love to help. I want to help solve these problems. Sometimes I'll do it for free. Sometimes I'll say it feels like a consulting. And I do 15-minute minimum consulting. If I can help you, we'll get on a screen share, solve your problem, get you moving on, or help you learn how to take advantage of something. So what if you're still not sold? I get it. You might just be happy with the extensions you have, or you've tried CFBuilder and hit problems and you may not be motivated to seek the solution. Maybe you just prefer your older editors. I get it. Just note that you could just as readily use VS Code to simply edit files and not even use CFBuilder. That's better than nothing. But for both audiences, I just want you to consider that you could still use CFBuilder for some things that you don't use it for any other purpose. You use it for this one thing, such as to use the code analyzer feature, right? Maybe I'll never persuade you to use those other things, but you should still consider learning how to use the CF code security analyzer feature in CFBuilder. And again, I could do a whole talk on that. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I will. That would be great. And I'd show all the configuration stuff and then how to use it. I'm just saying. Or the profiler, if you use the PMT, or the step debugger. Even if you never want to use it for anything but those things, don't want to do day-to-day coding in it, I get it. But using it for these things, it's free. It's free. So just learn to use it. And that's where I'm here to help. As far as finding more information on your own, well, on that front page, when you look at the extension, it's got links, it's got reminders, it shows screenshots, or I've showed you these links. Here's the link again. And there's many sections under that. And on the left nav bar of that site, and we've looked at it. Well, we didn't look, but in this time, I'm going to go and move on. Just trust me, go visit that. Beware that search engines and AIs and some blog posts and channel discussions might point you to the old CFBuilder. Don't go to the old CFBuilder. If you look at a URL and it says in there using ColdFusion Builder, you might think that's what I want. No, it's not. What you want is ColdFusion Builder extension for Visual Studio Code. Adobe's changed the docs so that they didn't change the URL of the old one. The old one still points to the old one. They created a new path to go to the new one. I kind of think they should have gone the other way, but that's what they did. So anyway, just be aware when you're looking at the docs, you might find something and go, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't, it says to click on a preference menu. There isn't a preferences menu. Oh, you're in the old CFBuilder on Eclipse. So just be careful. They won't have always thought to say that in the docs, right? You just have to discern it. As far as finding more information on VS Code, I showed you this in passing, but I want to show it again. If you come up here to the help menu, there's an open walkthrough in particular, and check this out. There's getting started, customizing, learning the fundamentals, and on and on and on. So those, and if you choose just that first one called fundamentals, getting started, I'd say, it walks you through things step by step. And so anyway, lots of ways to get help, even without just purely looking at docs. And there's an offer of videos on there. And there's a playground with guides showing you how to do stuff. And there's docs, and there's the link to the docs. And there's the keyboard shortcuts reference. And there's getting started videos. And there's a getting started documentation page and a tips and tricks page. And then the community, there's people writing blog posts. There's people doing videos. There's courses on LinkedIn Learning, on Udemy, you name it, Skillshare. There's lots of options out there. And I would recommend, like I've taken courses both from LinkedIn Learning and from Udemy to see how people present things there, and they're really well done. Not everyone, but there's some that would be great if somebody just watched an hour-long LinkedIn Learning one. Now, sometimes there's some Udemy ones that go on for 6 or 7 hours, and they feel like they could have been done in an hour. But just anyway, look at them and decide if you want to try to consider them. There's lots of ways to learn more about VS Code. And I'll add that I'm thinking about doing a course. I was hinting at this a couple times throughout. If you're interested, when I come out with it, just send me an email to support@carehart.org. Just put course in the subject. It's the only course I'm talking about. So if you send that to me, I'll know you're interested. You don't have to say anything else. If you want to, feel free. But just to keep it easy. If you're interested, let me know, and I'll let you know if I ever get around to creating it. And I'm looking at the platforms and options and trying to pick what topics. Now, I said if time remained, I had some ideas of things to cover, and I guess we do, since you guys said you typically go a couple hours. So I have a couple things I'd be prepared to show, but before I do that, let me throw the floor out to you guys. Is there anything you would be interested to see, or questions you have, or concerns you want to raise?
One question I've got, Charlie, is AI related, and I don't know if anyone has used CFBuilder with the #1 choice worldwide for AI for developers called Cursor, which is a plugin for VS Code. I assume you'd have to disable AI in CFBuilder. But
well, time out. There is no AI in CFBuilder. There is no AI in CFBuilder. You're thinking of what I said earlier. I was referring to the AI in Visual Studio Code.
Okay.
Now you're saying, would you have to disable the AI in Visual Studio Code to use Cursor? I don't believe so. The AI that I was referring to, it was about Copilot, and it's just things that pop up saying you want to use it. I don't think you have to disable that to use the Cursor extension or any of the others that are out there. But I am not expert on them. I'll just say that I don't believe you'll find you have to disable anything.
Well, I think we're all beginners on AI, so, and I've been messing around with it for a year. So, okay, thanks a lot.
You betcha. Anything from
anybody else got any questions for Charlie?
And if not, like I've got
the demo.
Yeah, sure. Just a few things, little tips. So for instance, I want to make sure everybody knows that if you're trying to find text in a file among all your open files, all the files in your folder you're looking at, or across all your open tabs, there's an extended find feature, find in files, and it's Control-Shift-F. And I just want to show you, for example, if I open one of these ones that had lots of stuff in it. Did that have a pretty deep? That's fairly deep. So it's under Edit, Find in Files. It's not Find. Find is to look for text in the tab, of course. Find in Files is to find across all the files in the folder that you currently have open. And it's, just that sort of interface up there. And if I typed, ColdFusion, because this is my awesome Compose, it's got a lot of examples of Compose files using ColdFusion. So the word ColdFusion appears all over the place, so that's not a great example. But while we're here, I want to show you a couple of tricks. You can just do this and you can collapse things. And I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at that. You can do all that. You can also come up here and, sorry, it was this button. You can collapse all. And now you're looking at all the things in the folder or all the tabs you have open across the screen. So there were some files in my tabs that were open that aren't in this folder structure, but they're open and it found them and I could look at that. And the way this interface works, it shows you that, or if I expand this again, it shows you those. But I want to show you there's another thing that some people benefit because they find this to be an annoying looking interface, trying to dig through here to see what's what. There's also up here this feature that say view it as a tree. Sorry, I right-clicked it by mistake. And now it just looks like this, which might appeal to you. You might go, I don't see the difference. Just play with it on your own. But you can see what files, what folders, how many occurrences of that string that you searched for are in there. These are just subtle little things that if you never get shown it, you wouldn't know it was there. And I just help a lot of people that do some clumsy things to look for files. They look at their file system or whatever. And hey, it's just built in. So take advantage of it. If you only wanted to look at, like, maybe you've got a huge file structure open and you're like, I don't want to search through all these files. I just want to look in the tabs that I have open. Well, you might have noticed I clicked on this ... When you're in the find, remember it was find in files. When I'm in find in files, one of the buttons is this ... And this button here, if you mouse over, it says search only in the open editors. So if I click that, now when I do the search, I'm not looking at all the files. It's going to be far fewer results now. It's just the tabs that I have open, for better or worse. I'm just saying, if you just want to search across the tabs you have open, that's how you do it. You have to know to click that little button. Very subtle, wouldn't be obvious to most people. Quick search is a similar way to search across either the files you have open or files in a folder, but it opens a different looking interface that might be appealing to some people. So I'm just gonna come up here and remember the palette is F1, and I'm just going to type quick search. And it shows this little percent sign, but I'm just going to now type, you know, like ColdFusion again. I wasn't quick enough, or I clicked on something, it went away, but there's quick search right there. ColdFusion. And even before I was done typing it, it just shows a different looking interface, and I can just use my down arrow key to look at each one of them, and it's opening the file and going right to that place if that's of benefit. So that's quick search. Just a couple different ways to do file search stuff, which is a common thing that people need to do. I love this too, a really great shortcut. Control R is to search for files and folders by name from recently opened files. So for example, if I go back to this one that didn't have anything open, and I do Control R, these are all the files I have opened with VS Code. Again, not CFBuilder, VS Code. Control R opened what looks like the palette. It's not the palette. It's a similar interface, but it's Control R, says select to open. It's searching for showing me what files have been opened recently, but it's searchable. So if I knew that I had a server.xml, look, I mean, because I do a lot of stuff with ColdFusion servers, so there's an XML file called server.xml. I just type server dot and boom, there's all the different ones I've opened. Lucy's one, ColdFusion's one, something in a implemented Alma OS Linux and WSL, if you know what that is. All that's findable because I've opened it in the past. That's what that feature is, Control R, to just find the files you know you've opened. Notice I didn't have to go digging around in the folder structure to find that file. And I wasn't searching across all the files for text. I'm searching just for what files have I had open recently. And this is going way back. I mean, some of these I haven't looked at in 6 months, and it just keeps that history and readily finds them on it. So Control R, really great one. I mean, I said this earlier, and I wanted to show you a different approach. Remember how I showed you if I tried to open a new folder here, if I say file, I said new window, would open a new blank window, but I was trying to open a folder. Let's say I came in here and I clicked on, just going to pick one, that folder. If I clicked on this, we saw that it popped up and said, hey, do you want to save all the unedited file, the things you haven't saved? If I don't want to do that, this is a little subtle thing that most people would never think of. If I shift click on that, I'm going to hold down shift and click on that. It just opens a new window looking at that folder with no tabs open yet. That's cool, right? So then I didn't have to worry about that thing and all of its tabs. I didn't have to open up one from scratch and go digging around. I could do it real quickly. So just little things. Again, I could go on and on and on. I'm not going to keep going on and on. But I do want to point out that there's a timeline. I mentioned this earlier, and as long as we still have a moment, I want to show you this timeline feature. It's like a poor man's version of version control. Like right here, this README. I don't know if this will be a good example, but we're going to find out in a moment. So I have this folder open. Yep, this awesome compose. I have this folder open. I have this file open. And I want to know what changes have I made over time to this file. And when you have a folder open and you're seeing the folder and you have a file open, down at the bottom, you'll see timeline. And check it out. I clicked on timeline, and this very file here that I'm looking at, I have made other changes over the years. And look, a year ago, I changed it. And before that, I changed that. And before that, I changed that. And check this out. If I click on this, it opens a comparison instantly and automatically. And this was from a time when some of you know that compose files used to say docker-compose, and you don't have to say that anymore. It's docker compose. So it's opened the old version and compared it and told me what was the difference. And if I liked that, I could right click on it and choose to restore that. Or I could say I want to open it in File Explorer, blah, blah, blah. So just poor man's version of version control called the timeline. If you try to, it's not a CFBuilder feature, it's a VS Code feature. And if you try to use it and it doesn't work, again, you have to be aware you have to have a folder open. And you have to have edited the file in VS Code. Obviously, it's only keeping track of that. Now, some of you go, I would never do that because I have version control. Yes, yes, yes. If you use version control like Git, You can integrate that. In fact, it's got built-in Git support. It's in there out of the box. That's what that little button right there is. And this particular folder I'm looking at, I've got, various uncommitted changes and haven't pushed things, and you can look into all that later. But what I wanted to, again, that's straightforward. You can find out lots of places about how to use the Git integration with VS Code. But I want to point out, you can put in an alternative compare tool when you're doing that source control based thing or that timeline based thing. You don't have to open that built-in feature. If you like, pick Beyond Compare. Great tool, multi-platform, really inexpensive, wonderful, updated all the time. You can integrate Beyond Compare to be the comparison tool so that when you're in the editor, you can say, do your comparison using Beyond Compare. And if you like that interface, you can get that. So just a little thing I want to say. Now on to CF Builder, the code security analyzer. I might be able to do this. Yeah, yeah, we got about 7 minutes or 11 minutes if we want to end it. No, you said 2 hours. We're about there. So you guys tell me. We'll take a vote. Anybody want to see the security code analyzer? If I don't know how to see votes, so speak up. Oh yeah, I see the little thumbs up. Yeah, so you should be able to put a thumbs up in your panel somewhere, and I see one. So one. All right. I don't know if everybody's able to vote, is choosing to vote, but let's move on in the interest of time, and we'll pick whatever gets the most votes. So give me a second. The step debugger. Looks like no votes for that. Okay, so I'm glad I didn't waste your time. The code profiler, which would require PMT integration. That'll be harder for me to do anyway. So tell you what, we'll just try to do it in a couple minutes. We'll do the code security analyzer. So will this work? Yeah, this will work. So remember, I said I'm going to maximize it so we see more stuff. When you go to that CF logo, if you have any servers configured, it will find them and show them. Now, right now, I'm not showing any. I don't connect the dots as to why that's so. Well, there you go. There they came up. So there's my CF servers. Now you might say, well, I don't have that yet. Well, I want to tell you to configure a server, you can click this plus sign, which opens up this interface where you fill these values in that I told you about. Or check this out. When you mouse over this, you can click this button, which says import local server. And if you click that, it fills it in with, up here at the top, it's asking for, sorry, get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way.
It's asking you in the lower right corner.
Well, it's asking if I want to cancel it, and I didn't want to cancel it. But a moment ago, it was up at the top, so I'll do it one more time. So I'll do import local server, and up at the top, it's saying, well, what's the name of the server? And so I already have all my servers defined, but I'll tell you what, you can create another one. I'll call it local 23, because I happen to have 23 running. So I'm going to say local 23. It doesn't matter what I call it. And it's going to open up this interface and say, tell me where that ColdFusion is. Now, this box is kind of small and you can't see everything. That was 2025. I'll go up and pick 2023. There you go. CFusion. And that's what it wants. And look, it's already added it. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to fill in anything. I told it where the ColdFusion CFusion folder was, and it was able to read the JVM config and other things that it needed to populate what it needed. And it said, okay, cool, I know him. And if I edit it, you'll see it's filled in. Again, things are being a little slow, but there you go. It already filled that in because this was already inside of the config files. It was able to read it and pull it in. Let's move on. So since I have that server configured, now if I create a project, and I'm going to import a project, and I could create a workspace, put it anywhere I want. I'll do that in the interest of time just to demonstrate to you guys that where it is doesn't matter. And, I'm on a Windows machine. I could put it in my documents folder. So give me a second to go to my doc. It doesn't matter where you put it, but you got to, pick somewhere that you're going to remember to look at later. So I'm going to go to my documents folder, and I'm going to create a new folder. called CFB demo. And that's going to be my workspace location. And now that I've picked a workspace location, I got to name it. So it's saying call it CFB demo by default. I would say yes. It was up at the top. There was a choice at the top. Now, what's weird is it says, do I want to trust it? Yes, it's my folder. I can trust it. But it hasn't done anything except open it as a workspace. If I go back to the CF logo, I was in the process of trying to import the project. So I'm going to say import project. It's that workspace, which isn't where my code lives. The workspace is not where the code lives. And then it's going to say, where does the code live? Right now it says select project location. I'm going to say one more time. That first step, it's silly. It's not going to be needed soon. Some future update of CFBuilder will remove that. We'll just point to where the code lives. Well, anyway, I'm going to now point to where the code lives. And I actually happen to, in the interest of time, let me just pick my ColdFusion 2023 D drive. ColdFusion 2023, CFBuilder www root, just in the interest of time. Remember, it doesn't have to be here. I'm going to do that. And hopefully I've got some example code to look at in there. All right, so now I have a project which has some ColdFusion code in it. Like, I'm just going to open this randomly. It doesn't matter what it is. So now that I have a project with ColdFusion files in it, and I open the file in the project, watch when I right-click on it. I hadn't shown you this earlier, but some of these were already there. And down here at the bottom, it's not in there. Okay, I'm going to right-click it here instead. There you go. And see, it says Run Security Analyzer. Now, it's not going to work. I want to show you why it's not going to work and explain when you try it, why it doesn't work. How do you fix it? So I right-clicked on a CFM file, said Run Security Analyzer. And in the bottom right corner, it says the server is not configured with the project. And if I click on this, here it shows the full words. And it says edit the project and pick a server. Okay, so I'm going to close that. And this project that I created here, if I edit it, we hadn't seen this before, but there's this interface appearing right there. And look, we didn't see this before. It was just the name of it and the folder. It picked the name for me. Here's where it says, well, what servers do you have? And there's that local 23 that I just created. So again, if you just followed along, you could do this too. What language version is it? You could do that. And since I'm looking at code that's in the ColdFusion, CFBuilder www root, that's all I got to do. I'll click OK. And now finally, one more time, I'm going to do Run Security Analyzer. And there's nothing wrong with it. So let's create a problem in there. It's not, I don't mind messing this up. I don't want to go into sleep for 10 seconds. So I'm going to just say CF output URL.name, right? That would be a bad thing to do. That would be open to a cross-site scripting injection. So I'm going to save that and tell it to run Security Analyzer. And instantly it said, hey, I have a problem right here. And the way the interface works, it's telling you it's a high severity problem of a cross-site scripting. And if I click on it, it shows more about it over here on the right. And it's been a while since I've used this. I thought we'd be able to see the actual code. Now there's this up here, but that's not what I'm looking for. Is there a button hidden or missing? Well, anyway, that's, you could go look at that. It's telling you it's online through. I thought that when I clicked it, it would open it, but I'm not seeing it do that in the background. But what I want to say before we leave this is there is an export feature, and this will create a file. I think it's a PDF, and I'll go ahead and put it in my downloads directory, whatever. And I just told it to create it. And in a moment, I'm going to look at that downloads folder, and you won't see it just yet, but let me just get there and see if it's there. No, it didn't put it there. There it says report downloaded successfully. Not seeing it yet. Don't know why it's not appearing. I am seeing a little progress bar indicator. My machine had been acting a little weird today, maybe with all the stuff I have open. So maybe that's being slow. But look, it said it downloaded it. The point is, does it say more? Maybe does it say, yeah, just put it in there. So it will create the report, and that you can look at it as a PDF, I believe it is, and share it with other people. And I know I only had a small folder here, but I've run this against very large folders. What's very large, right? I'm not going to give you numbers, but I've run it against folders with hundreds of files, thousands of files, and it's pretty fast. The point is, just to remind you, back what I said about a half hour ago, if you did nothing else but use CFBuilder for this ability to do this security code analyzer, for some of you, that would be a win, right? It's built in to CFBuilder. It's built into ColdFusion. It used to be when it first came out in CF 2016 that you had to have ColdFusion Enterprise. That's no longer true. And lastly, I know somebody might be chomping at the bit to say, well, I don't need this because I've got Fixinator from Pete, Freitag, and Foundeo. And I love Pete and his tools and his company. So yes, there is Fixinator. It's a commercial tool that does security code analysis in a different way. It leverages command box. It's done from the command line. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just different. This is built in. I'm just saying this is built in and it's free. So again, hopefully you'll leverage it if you start to get into using CFBuilder, even if you never use CFBuilder for anything else. If you don't use Fixinator, you should be using this code analyzer to analyze your code, and you could point it to a whole directory. I didn't show you that, right? My bad. I just right-clicked on a file. Just want to make sure it worked. I can come up here and say analyze the whole folder, and now it's running the analysis against the whole folder. And this is the ColdFusion WW root, so it might find files that are Adobe's files, and we can't probably look at those source code, but that's certainly, concerning that in this component utils, there's an XSS vulnerability that tool found. You'd think that Adobe would scan their own stuff, but I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into that discussion any further. So that was that. So again, CFBuilder is more than just Adobe's extension. It's also everything you get with VS Code as well, and all of its abilities. And it adds lots of features that the other extensions don't, for better or worse. Some things are easier and cool, and others are challenging. There's lots of resources that exist to learn both about CFBuilder and VS Code. A lot of problems that people will find can be resolved or have been resolved. And if we can't do it together, you can reach out to Adobe, or in the community. If they don't solve it, reach out to Adobe. And again, to reach out to me, here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me any of these ways. Check out the slides at that presentation. And with that, I hope everybody enjoyed the talk. Sorry for going a little long. I just took the opportunity to go longer because I thought you guys might enjoy it. I hate it that it's been 2 hours. Some people will hate to watch it, but you said you go normally 2 hours, so we're a little over that. But as long as
We
people
appreciate
are happy,
it. Thank you.
betcha. Anything from anybody at all? I know a lot of you guys have been silent there, so speak now or forever hold your peace.
Lots of stuff, and as usual, Charlie, you're giving things that I didn't think about, and I learned some stuff that I didn't know. I think there was one you said was Control R. I was like, nope, didn't know about that one.
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to make sure I got a chance to point that out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else? Anything?
No, nothing else. Appreciate it.
Y'all.
Yeah,
Well, until the next one,
I learned a lot.
you betcha. Glad to have helped. And I'll look forward to any feedback at all. Anybody, I always tell you guys this. Nobody ever does it. Pros, cons, thanks, no thanks. Correct this. Don't forget that. Leave this out next time. Anything at all. I welcome your feedback. I'll figure out how, when I do it for Adobe the next time, to keep it in an hour. There's some things I'll probably create some blog posts or videos to just point to them and make it go faster. But any other feedback at all, I welcome it.